Pokemon actually came out the year I was born, so I kinda managed to have Pokemon in my life before I even could retain memories. My first contact with the franchise was 2 years before I even knew what Pokemon was, and that was when I was 2. I had this bouncy Super Ball that was clear and filled with a figurine of some kind of mermaid-like mammal, and at the time I didn't know it was Vaporeon, but I loved it. But technically, my actual introduction to Pokemon was when I was almost 4 and my mom bought some VHS tapes of Pokemon. They had a good chunk of the first season on it, and I watched the first 20 episodes of Pokemon every other day. Half of my memories from my early childhood were of me just coming home from whatever my mom dragged me to during that day and popping those VHS tapes after dinner. It was such a comforting thought, but it wasn't until the first Pokemon film came out that I'd say I was hooked on Pokemon. You see, the Mewtwo Strikes Back tape obviously came with the Pikachu Vacation short, which I watched too many times, but what's significant about that short were its transitions, where we see a bunch of Pokemon just repeating their names over and over as they were shown on screen, and it was very hypnotizing and was the beginning of my obsession with imitating Pokemon voices, which definitely strengthened my love for these creatures. But I still wasn't conscious of the Pokemon video game franchise. My neighbor had Super Smash Bros, so I knew that Pokemon existed in video game form, but I still wasn't aware this animated show I was watching was from Japan, or that it was based on a video game. I didn't even know what 5+8 was at the time, let alone Hyper Beam. But all of that changed once I moved to a new New York City borough at the age of 6, and I made a new friend, also named Ron, in 1st grade who introduced me to Pokemon Stadium. We played from sunrise to sunset. It helped me get familiar with the whole Pokemon battling aspect a year before I actually played my first main game, And I even went out and bought, my parents went out and bought me an N64, and the only game I had on it was Pokemon Stadium, which I played with my brother all the time. At the time, Generation 2 was going on, but I knew nothing about Johto. I've seen like Marill and Togepi and Ho-Oh and Lugia and a few other Pokemon, but I didn't know Gold and Silver existed. However, Pokemon Stadium 2 caught my attention and I was able to borrow it from my friend for a week. And I wasn't familiar with most of the Pokemon since I wasn't watching the Johto anime, so I didn't vibe with it. I just moved to a new place and got a new cable provider after all, so I didn't quite know what channel Pokemon was on. By the end of 1st grade, my Nintendo 64 somehow broke, but thankfully reruns of Pokemon began to run on what I think was Cartoon Network at the time, so I was able to watch some Orange Island and Johto Journeys for the first time, but not religiously. It wasn't until November 2003, in 2nd grade, when I found out that Pokemon was airing on 4Kids, just as Ash's Hoenn adventures were beginning, so from then on, I was officially hooked on the anime, but I was still missing something. I made another friend named Ike, and he introduced me to Pokemon Ruby. I got a Game Boy Advance SP a few months before, so I was able to get myself Ruby as well, and I'd say that was the most important event in my life. My first ever main series Pokemon game, but I could have abandoned Pokemon if it wasn't for the following miracle. So I was having fun playing Ruby, and I chose Trico, and Sceptile became my favorite Pokemon, but I wasn't able to progress past the 5th gym. I couldn't find the HM for Surf. I looked everywhere, and for months I was begging my friend Ike to tell me where he got Surf, but he couldn't remember. But one Friday morning at school, I asked Ike again, and it just so happened that some 3rd grader overheard us and said, "Oh, Surf? You get it from Wally's dad next to Norman's gym." And if it wasn't for that kid, I truly believe I would have gotten bored with the games and stopped playing Pokemon altogether. And when I came home, I got Surf and was finally able to access the other side of Route 118. And as I landed on shore, the music hit me with a sense of wonder. Steven greeted me, and then I entered Route 119 and found a rainforest with tall grass, bridges, and waterfalls. It was a paradise. Until this day, Route 119 is one of my favorite routes because of this experience. It felt like an actual reward to my adventure. From then on, I replayed Ruby a bunch of times and even began drawing Fakemon. I love drawing, and I gotta say that drawing my very own Pokemon also helped me strengthen my creativity and skill. It allowed me to go on the path which ultimately led me to my current career choice, 3D animation. I was still learning so much about the franchise, and I finally bought my first pack of Pokemon cards, and it became a monthly trend. I remember the first pack having this holographic Rhydon that I carried for days, and that's why it's so beat up. It's pretty crazy how my first card was of the first Pokemon to ever be officially created. By the end of 2nd grade, my friend Ike moved away, and I became best friends with another kid named Tal. He was a fellow artist, and we were kind of drawing rivals. We would compete in drawing Pokemon and Fakemon and the size of our Pokemon card collection, etc. He even had Pokemon Coliseum, so for that Hanukkah, I got the game as well. I never beat the game ever, but I played it so much. I was just not ready for a console RPG, I guess. Around this time, I somehow acquired Pokemon Yellow. I don't know where it came from, and I don't know where it is now, but I wasn't really able to get into it. And as a kid, there wasn't any reason to play a graphically inferior Pokemon game where you can't run. But my biggest blunder at the time was when I pre-ordered Leaf Green, got it, and for some reason, I hated it. It also somehow got lost, or I think we gave it away or returned it to GameStop. I don't know, but when Pokemon Emerald launched, God, did that become my go-to game. I racked up 500 hours, more than any Pokemon game I've played before, and I still haven't gotten most of the medals in the Battle Frontier. 2005 and 6 was my peak Pokemon immersion. I played Emerald every day, watched the anime every week, drew original Pokemon all the time, and even created multiple games with my brother. We would constantly have Pokemon battles as if we were the Pokemon doing moves like Karate Chop or Leaf Blade, and it was like sparring, but with Pokemon moves. Eventually, Tal moved away as well, and I became best friends with another dude named Brian. He was the guy that introduced me to the internet in 2006, apparently, and all of the cool Pokemon-related things that you could see online. That September, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl came out in Japan, but wasn't out in North America for a while, so for months, I was looking at all the Sinnoh Pokemon on Cerebi. Brian and I would just test each other on our knowledge of these new Pokemon many times at school. It was the first time we were seeing a new generation of Pokemon while playing the games in which these Pokemon were unobtainable. It was super intriguing. And we couldn't wait for Generation 4, but I had Mystery Dungeon and Pokemon Ranger to keep me occupied in the meantime. I got Diamond in 5th grade on April 2007. It was uncanny playing a new generation for the first time. It was fun, but weird. I remember not being too keen on how the Sinnoh Pokemon cries were more clear and high quality, but it was the first time Pokemon music played a huge role in my experience. It led to Sinnoh becoming a pretty nostalgic region to me, especially since I ended up playing it less than I wanted to. I actually barely finished the games. I just wasn't feeling it, especially because Brian convinced me to use his action replay, which gave me unlimited TMs and items, but somehow erased the HMs I actually already had. So I couldn't teach them to any new Pokemon, but at least I already taught the HMs to my party members. Around the same time, I started buying a lot of Pokemon cards from a 99-cent store that was near us, and the packs were $1 each, so my brother and I got 4 times more than we usually did per month. But then we found out that all of those cards were fake. The experience made us kinda burned out, and we didn't buy Pokemon cards ever since. This decline in my consumption of Pokemon all culminated in one sleepover. I went to my friend Natani's for the weekend and missed an episode of the Diamond and Pearl anime, so that's when I stopped watching the anime altogether. In 6th grade, January 2008, I also stopped drawing original Pokemon unless I was doodling in school. So there it was, my first yet only falling out with Pokemon. Everybody has a generation they stop playing Pokemon for a while. Mine was the second half of Generation 4, I guess. For 3 years, I did barely anything Pokemon related. It wasn't until my freshman year of high school that I remembered Pokemon games existed. Pokemon Black and White just came out, and my brother got White. I asked him if it was any good, and he said yes. So March 2011, I fell back in love with Pokemon while playing Pokemon Black. There were 155 new Pokemon that I've never seen before. It was so fun learning about them all. And now that I was a teenager, I began to respect all the cool origins and names that these Pokemon had. I had such a blast that I got the Pokemon game I missed prior to Pokemon Black and White, Heart Gold, and I finally played a Johto Pokemon game. I asked my brother's friend for his copy of Fire Red and had a blast as well, even though I hated it as a kid. I even played Emerald again. But that's also when I discovered the YouTube channels of Jaywitz and Tamashi, and I learned how deep Pokemon could be. I also learned about the development of Pokemon games and all the behind-the-scenes stuff that I love to research about today. It was fun gaining all this knowledge about something other than the superficial aspects of the franchise, and I thought to myself, how have I been a fan for all my life, yet only now realized all the depth behind these games? And that's when Pokemon X and Y were announced. I knew then that Pokemon would be a part of my life forever because my hype was genuine. I got a 3DS that summer and played Pokemon Diamond, and this time, I had a blast. I cherished the experience. I discovered the PokeTuber community and watched a ton of videos hyping up X and Y before it's launched, like Dookie Shed's videos. Once X and Y came out, I was a senior in high school with a lot of responsibilities, so I slowly played the games, and it took literally 15 times longer to finish them than my brother. But I appreciated how long it took, because I savored it. Once I finished Pokemon X, I knew I had to download the soundtrack, so X and Y's OST, along with Pokemon Reorchestrated, who I am friends with by now, Braxton Burks, shout out to him, and a ton of Glitch X City remixes were the first albums on my phone, and I listened to Pokemon music every day since. I even started watching the anime again once Ash's X and Y saga started. Once I finished X and Y, I also uploaded my first Pokemon video. I didn't consider making a full Pokemon channel, but I was inspired by all the top 10s I was watching at the time. And as I was wrapping up high school, I noticed how I never played Pokemon Black and White 2, so I bought my brother's Black 2 from him, and it was worth every penny. It became one of my favorite Pokemon games. Just as I was playing these games, I opened up my laptop and saw the Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire announcement trailer. They were remaking my first Pokemon game. I couldn't have been more happy. My hype ignited my passion for this franchise that kept on giving. I decided to finally make my second video on my channel, and my third video, 2 weeks later, celebrated my love for the music of the Hoenn games, and the fourth video I released kicked off my channel. And the rest is history. I became more than just a Pokemon fan. I became someone who was actively trying to create more fans for the most significant piece of media I've ever consumed. The #1 best-selling media franchise in existence, Pokemon.